how do you feel about this matchup for the Leafs? You know, the way Columbus is built, the way they play, what Noodles was just saying.
Well, it was certainly as big a contrast in styles as you could have, and certainly when Panarin left and went to the Rangers, that was a way, way, way bigger loss than Bobrovsky, and it seemed at the time that people were comparing the two, that it would be equally as big, not even close, and they weren't able to replace the craftiness and the high-end skill that Panarin had, and they signed Gus Nyquist, and Nyquist's a nice player, but he's not Panarin. But I think, guys, like at the start of this thing, it almost seems like, because nobody's really going to be super, super sharp, that the offensive guys, in my mind, will have a little bit of a leg up on the teams that grind it and play a really structured game. Now, I don't know if Columbus plays that anymore. Like, they seem to have opened it up a bit. They certainly want those D, in particular Werenski and Jones, like flying up into the play. And I would say it's a bit of a misnomer to think they're a lock-it-down team, but they're certainly a harder, more blue-collar team than Toronto. I think Toronto's skill, for sure, early in the playoffs, this play-in round, whatever you call it, is going to be a big advantage for them.
Yeah, that's what they're banking on. That's why they got paid, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, like, sorry, Jamie, I think even more so, Brian, like, because they've been off for so long, it's like the start of the year, this kind of is the start of a season. And at the start of every year in October, we all get jumping up and down because all the games are 6-5. Because the skill guys seem to be, a little bit ahead of everybody else. And I kind of feel like that could happen. And if it does, certainly that's great news for the Leafs.
Yeah, it favors Toronto in that way when the games open up, because they're built that way, especially with the high-end guys, right? They're not shy to, it doesn't seem to be a lot of physicality. Now, we'll see if Columbus changes that. I think that's the one X factor for me, is Columbus can skate, but they're physical. And will the Leafs be able to battle through? It's not about fighting, and it's not about, but it is about, taking a hit to make a play, about winning a 50-50 battle. That's the one detail when I look at Columbus, and that's a Tortorella team. It's almost like he must have had a hand in building this team. Kekalainen is a really good talent evaluator, but I think Torts may have had maybe a say of a couple players, because it comes to mind like Sonny Milano, for example, highly skilled guy, but all of a sudden he just didn't seem like a Torts guy. And they had some other players push through that made him expendable. But ultimately, I think the Leafs can have success if their skilled guys are willing to compete hard against those Columbus players that they're going to push you for every inch of ice.
That's why I think this is actually a better setup for the Leafs and a better opportunity, because of what we keep hearing from them, that they hear the narrative, they hear about their reputation. Well, here's a perfect example to go out and prove that you are strong enough to push through it, mentally, physically. No one's saying you got to morph into the Broad Street Bullies. But no. if you're going to prove that you can play any possible game, and if you're going to win a Stanley Cup, you have to, right? Like, every round is different. Every round's going to throw a different curveball at you. You're not going to get a team that is built just like you every single year. It's never going to happen. So here's an opportunity with a team that doesn't have as much skill, like Boston can, where Boston can just bury you because they might play a skill game on you. But they're going to work. They're going to make you work. Prove that you can work. And if you can do it, you can win.
Yeah, Dubois was their leading scorer. What do you have, 50 points?
Right, exactly.
Right.
Like, the crazy part about Columbus is, like, every time they would lose somebody, it seemed somebody would come back in the lineup, and that guy returning would give them a little blast. Like Atkinson, you mentioned, Jamie, he was hurt a lot of the year, like not quite right. They lost, like Korpisalo started out great, then he got hurt, and then Merzlikins came in, and he was great, and then he faded, and Korpisalo came back, and Ryan Murray's in and out of the lineup all the time with injuries. A poor guy just can't quite get healthy. But the place I think will be really interesting to me to watch is, so the Leafs, up the middle, with in particular Tavares and Matthews, is how Columbus will match centers against them. Like, will they play Boone Jenner against Matthews and Dubois against Tavares, or flip those guys around? Because the other centerman, they got Alexander Wenberg. They signed him to a 6-year extension a couple of years ago, and I don't know what's happened to the kid, but he never, ever, ever, ever scores. Like, I don't know what's happened to him, because he was a pretty talented player, but he's with Atkinson. So I think there's a real matchup plus for Toronto up the middle of the ice.
Right. Yeah,
and
there
then
should be.
The blue line, we'll see. Like, they keep talking about, we've had time, we've worked on our systems, we've done this, we've changed this, we're healthier, and they're one of the worst teams in the league defending the cycle. And Columbus cycles pretty well.
Right.
Like that's going to be a lot of a challenge for Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. And all the cliches, I feel like they're amplified even more because it's a best of 5, right? Like the importance of winning game 1, it's almost like you win a game and a half compared to like conventional logic. You get that first game, you're starting to feel it. Like, and then it's like, okay, we're used to what's going on here and we like it. We can deal with this. No fans. It's all good. So,
Well, you're right, Brian. And just think about it. Here's another scenario. Like, if a goaltender steals a game, like that's what's going to happen in one of these series where a team plays outstanding. Like Vancouver the other night. Vancouver played really well, I thought, against Winnipeg, but they didn't beat Hellebuck. And all of a sudden, now you're down 1-0. And then the team, then Winnipeg, for example, goes, well, we got to back up our goaltender here. Let's play a little differently. Let's knuckle down here, and then they win one for the goaltender. Like to me, Brian, I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to how short this series is. Like you got to win 3 games. That's it, and it's a sprint. So there's no wading in and going, you know what? Like the goalie stole that one. We'll get the next one. Like to me, there will be a ton more pressure on some of these teams that are expected to win if they lose game 1.
And nothing's going to change either, guys.
Right.
There's no, hey, until we lose at home, we're not out of the series. You're not going home. There's no home.
Yeah.
You're all playing. This is exactly what you're doing for the next week.
I played in a 3 out of 5 series. It was 86, so I don't know how many years they did it. I don't remember, but we made the playoffs and we played Quebec. And they were a better team. They had all the star power. The Whalers made the playoffs for the first time in their history. And Noodles, it's just what you said. The goalie, Mike Liut, was our guy. He totally outplayed their guy in the first game. Really, not any of his fault. I think it was Mario Gosselin at the time. It wasn't really his fault, but Mike Liut was so good. We stole the first game. We had no business being in the game, and then we won it. And then the second game, they kind of panicked a bit, and we won the second game. Yeah. And they shut the door in game 3. They mailed it in. We won 9-4 or something. Like they just, they were just done. But it was like literally in 5 days, one of the best teams in the league was gone. And I think a lot of it had to do with Mike basically stole the first game for us.
Yeah.
And then we got going.
And you add one more thing into this, and Pooley brought this up, and it's a fantastic point, is there's back-to-back games in this. Like you're not, okay, you don't have 2 days to adjust and you're flying across, like Brian, you said. Like you're in the bubble, and there's a chance, with games 3 and 4, like you're playing tomorrow. You throw up a dud, you're playing right back tomorrow. And I know both teams will be tired and both teams will be on the same level playing field. But, a team gets on a heater for a week, they're in. A team struggles to find their game in that first week, they're going home. They're out of the bubble. That's it. Like it's going to be a sprint for some of these teams.
In a week, basically a week from now, maybe 8 or 9 days, there's going to be 8 teams that are gone. Like it's defined. The schedule has been made. There's no wavering. Right?
Yeah,
like
and then those 8 teams. And then those 8 teams are hoping for the 12.5% for Alexei Lafreniere.
Right. Are you surprised that hasn't got more attention? Like, I think it will at some point. But
it will after game 1 or 2. Yeah.
One of these teams is going to have the first overall pick in 2 months.
But I think everybody's forgotten about it because there's lots to focus on, and pretty quickly it's going to be one of the most interesting parts.